Welcome to Sotorho Life, where I give you tips and tricks on how to live your best, bossiest, boldest life. I can help you out. Today we're going to talk about, drumroll please, dating. And not just dating, but dating apps. I met my current boyfriend through a dating app, and hopefully, I think things are going well. I think it's just the way of dating these days. Unfortunately, because people feel like they're so awkward, feel like they're anxious, they're not necessarily comfortable going up to people in real life at a bar, on the train, or in the grocery store and just saying hello. These apps are an easy way to meet a lot of people in a short amount of time. I think millennials, we just like efficiency. And you can say what you want about dating apps, but you can't say that they're not efficient. So I'm gonna go through the steps on how to make a bomb profile on a dating app and how to go on a date and date in general so that you're actually effective in putting yourself out there and accepting positive energy back. So first, I'm gonna talk about making a profile on some of these apps. And when I say apps, I'm mainly referring to Hinge, Bumble, and Tinder. Those are the main ones I used. And just for you guys, I actually downloaded these apps again just to make sure that I was informed about all the new updates and possibilities that are available through these apps. Now, my favorite dating app was Hinge, and I still say it's Hinge because that's where I met my boyfriend, and it just felt like the one that created more organic connections. So it was really easy to just like or comment on someone's post or response, and that they could automatically respond to you that way instead of forcing an interaction with a weird pickup line or some gimmick. I remember with Bumble, I really liked the intention behind that with having the woman make the first move, but I think in actuality, it really gave guys the power, and I know a lot of guys who would just go on Bumble, swipe right on everyone, and then see who actually responded to them so that they kind of had their pick of the litter. And it just felt so forced having to come up with these like catchy pickup lines to get guys to respond. And then Tinder, I feel like Tinder kind of had this like negative connotation, but I'm sure things have changed recently, so maybe it's still good. I just always tell my friends to use Hinge, and I see a lot of couples around me who have met on Hinge, and that could just be a geographic thing where different cities have different dating apps that are more popular. So these are things to keep in mind, like what might be most popular in your city, and then just get a feel for which ones you have more success on. So first, let's start with making your profile. And the first thing is the pictures that you put on the profile. Now, there are a lot of issues that I've seen with some people's profiles. A number of those issues might be using only selfies, using mirror pics, using pictures where you're either like shirtless or not clothed, and then using group photos as every single photo. I've had numerous issues with that where I think I'm looking at one guy and then I realize way too late that it's a completely different guy in the photos. So I think a key with your dating profile photo and with just using the dating apps in general is like you want to share your personality. You want to make sure that you are representing yourself accurately, but also in like a fun, exciting way. So for photos, you should be representing the same things. So I think it's good to show a mix of solo pictures and pictures with friends, because you want to show the people in your life and you want to show that you're a social person, but you don't want to necessarily hide behind your group of friends. So I'm gonna put up a number of different photos that I've previously used on these apps, and you can kind of see what I'm talking about. But You want to show what your interests are, what you like doing, if you have a dog, if you like to travel, if you play golf. These are all things that you want to show in your photos because you want it to be representative of who you are. I think having around 4 photos is a really good benchmark because with 1 photo that might not be representative of how you look. And with 2 photos, you might look one way in one photo and then a completely different way in the next photo. So 4 gives enough variety where someone can be like, okay, I have somewhat of an understanding of what this person looks like. Another thing to remember is not to have sunglasses in maybe more than 1 or 2 photos. Now, sunglasses fortunately make people look great, but unfortunately don't necessarily show off your face. And you want to make sure that if you actually are meeting someone, they know what you look like. I don't know if you want to catfish, but that is not what I'm teaching, and that's not the goal. Another thing is you don't want more than 2 of your photos to be in a group of friends. So let's say you have a photo with like 4 or 5 of your friends. That should be the only photo that's like that. Having 1 other person in your photo is fine, especially when it's easy to tell because of your other photos who you are. But having every photo be a group photo just gets a little bit confusing. The reason I say no to a lot of like selfies and mirror pics is that 1, that can be a turnoff for a lot of guys and girls. Seeing someone with just like tons of selfies or mirror photos may show that you're really into yourself. On the flip side, it might mean that you don't actually do much, so you're at home taking photos of yourself instead of out there in the world enjoying life. So remember, at least 4 photos, ditch the sunglasses, ditch the mirror shots and selfies, limit the amount of bathing suit or shirtless photos that you have, and then anything else is a bonus. So if you want to have 5 or 6 photos, if you want to include videos that show you doing something that you love, that's a great way to let people know who you are. The next thing that you should focus on is the actual content within your profile. Now, I remember the olden days when it was just Tinder or maybe just Bumble, and a lot of people didn't say much in their profile. I don't think my Tinder profile said anything, just had photos. And I think over time, these apps have realized that it's really helpful to make connections when you have more information in your profile. So don't you try to be that like cool guy or cool girl who doesn't say anything, because that doesn't really tell anyone about who you are. This is why I actually loved Hinge when I first started using it, because they had those easy prompts that helped you answer questions and then helped you start a conversation. And I know the other apps have that now too. So really try to utilize that. And from my perspective, I think the questions that you choose are just as indicative of who you are as the answers themselves. Also, if you only answer 1 question and give a 1-word response, honestly, when I was using Hinge, that was kind of like an automatic no from me unless you were really attractive, because that kind of shows that you're either closed off and not willing to answer the questions or think you're too good for it, and that's not what I was looking for. So try to pick like 3 to 5 prompts that you're really excited to answer so that you give a genuine and interesting response, and that gives someone else something to respond to. So the next step after your profile is done is actually swiping, getting matches, and then having a conversation so you can eventually meet each other. I would say just try to be yourself and be normal. I think with some people it'd be very clear through either their profile or how they interact with you, like what their intentions are, and if their intentions aren't necessarily aligned with yours. So be cognizant of that. Like if you match with someone who maybe there was a red flag in their profile and then they give you another red flag while you're talking to them, you can probably be confident that they aren't a good match for you. But I am a big proponent of just giving people a chance, especially because you can't necessarily know who someone is just from looking at their profile. You really sometimes have to take that step and meet them or have a conversation with them outside of the app to figure out who they are. In terms of how long you should talk to someone before asking them out on a date, the people I spoke with who were most successful were the ones who were upfront. So maybe after 2 or 3 conversations over the course of a week, asking me out. So let's say you start talking on a Monday and then you message again Tuesday and Wednesday. Just be bold and ask that person out, because the worst that could happen is that they say no. If their goal isn't to meet you in person, then why waste your time and keep talking to them? I would also say that if someone asks for your social media before they either ask for your phone number or ask you on a date, just say no. Say, I'd rather meet you in person before sharing that. I think at some point my Instagram was connected to one of the apps, and that's fine if that's happening. But if they're actually trying to follow you on social media before meeting you, I think that can be a slippery slope where the conversation then moves to social media, like a Snapchat or an Instagram, and then it kind of prolongs things. So I have so many friends who are just talking to guys on Instagram and DMing them, and they're not being asked out. And to just avoid that altogether, don't give them your social media if you don't have to. So hopefully at this point you've created your profile, you've had a conversation with someone, and then it's time to go out on an actual date. So I am gonna preface this by saying that things are different now than they were 6 months ago or even a year ago. If you are dating during the COVID era, you should probably be upfront about what your preferences are regarding social distancing, seeing someone in person that you don't know, and things like that. Because if you aren't clear about that and don't ask for the other person's preferences, you could have a situation where you think someone doesn't like you, and just a general miscommunication. So if you're asking someone on a date right now, I would say, hey, I'd love to meet you in person. Completely understand that because of COVID, things are a little crazy. What are your preferences? Are you comfortable meeting in person? Do you want to meet virtually first or have a phone call, a FaceTime, and then go from there? And I'm sure different people have varying degrees of what they're comfortable with. Maybe someone wants to meet in person, but wants to keep masks on, or wants to make sure that you don't try to touch them or something like that. So just ask that question and put it out there before you kind of just assume. And then in terms of the actual date, I would say just be open to different options. And this I'm kind of thinking of pre-COVID, but I think so many people would go into dating with a negative feeling about it, and that's already setting yourself up for failure. So if you're afraid to meet new people, if you think people are annoying or it could be a waste of time, and you want to date and meet someone, you really need to get that out of your head, because you're not doing yourself any favors. Dating is really opening yourself up to the potential of something getting more serious, and you can't go into that situation having negative thoughts about it. So figure out what both of you are comfortable with and then take that route. I know I am very much a dinner gal. I either want to go out to lunch or dinner, or do something more exciting, like going ice skating or golfing or something like that. But I have so many friends who would only go out to coffee or for drinks because they wanted an out just in case things didn't go well. And I completely understand that. A lot of people are like that. But again, don't go into the situation thinking that you need an out. When I first moved to a new city, I went on tons of different dates, and I think just because I was open to things, most of them were really great. Like, I had great conversations, I met new people. I can literally count on like one hand the amount of dates that were bad. It was probably 2, but then you just don't have to go out with those people again. I would also say dating is obviously a lot easier if you're an extrovert or very conversational, and I can be an introvert at times but be really talkative other times. So if you are a person who is nervous about interacting with new people or gets really shy, doesn't know what to talk about, kind of think before the date, like, okay, these are a few things that I can bring up and a few things that I can ask them just to get the conversation rolling. And I do honestly think that if it's someone who you're actually a match with, you'll automatically, like, naturally have things to talk about. At the same time, you shouldn't just rely on the other person to make conversation. It's truly a two-way street. So if you need to, prepare before you go, take a shot if that's gonna make you more comfortable, but just go into the situation trying to be the best version of yourself. And then for some tips for a post first date. So I always went into a first date knowing that you might not see all sides of a person from that first date. So I would always say yes to a second date unless I completely knew that I did not like the person at all. I really do believe that people can be nervous on a first date or be uncomfortable, or the situation can get messed up, but you really get a sense for who a person is on the second date, and if that just confirms everything you knew from the first one, so be it. But I don't really see it as a waste of time. You're just gaining more information. I won't really go into like who should text first and how long you should wait for a response and things like that. I was never really into playing those games, so I'm probably not the one, or it could be a conversation for another video. But I'd say, like, just be honest with yourself and be open and be honest with the other person. If you're into it and want to see them again, just say you want to see them again. If not, and they ask you out again, say, okay, I'm not interested. In our culture today, ghosting is very much a real thing. I think if someone ghosts you after a first date, don't take it personally, because again, they really still don't know you. And you only met them once, so it's not really a big deal. You shouldn't be so emotionally invested in a person after a first date. Yes, maybe they should do you a courtesy and give you like an actual response and tell you why they don't want to move forward, but it's honestly not that big of a deal. And I will say, you can't invest too much of yourself after just a first date. Leave that for like third, fourth, fifth date. And guard your heart a little bit, right? Don't invest so much in someone who clearly doesn't care about you or give you signs that they're interested. And if there's any type of doubt in your mind if someone's interested in you, they're probably not interested enough. But again, this is all probably info for another video. But if you've enjoyed this video, like and subscribe so you get a notification every time I post. And then comment below on if you've used any of the apps, how you feel about them, if you've had successes or terrible outcomes, and then let me know what other topics you want to hear more about. Thank you.